Two teams with college football playoff aspirations. Only one can come out of Hard Rock Stadium this Sunday night victorious. Here's how the Notre Dame Fighting Irish and the Miami Hurricanes match up.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. He's Tyler Wojciak from Locked On Irish, and this is an epic crossover episode because, in case you didn't realize it, we're coming up to Fighting Irish at the Miami Hurricanes. First time these two teams have matched up in 8 seasons, and this is a big one, a top 10 matchup on Sunday night. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes and Locked On Irish your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And on this episode, Tyler and I will discuss our game predictions. We'll go on record in this one. We'll talk X-Factor players, key matchups, and Tyler, big storylines leading up to this game. I'll let you start with the Notre Dame side because there was a competitive quarterback competition. And for a while, we all thought, at least I thought, maybe you thought differently, that Kenny Minchey was going to be the guy. But CJ Carr ends up getting the nod. How did that all play out?
Yeah, there are a lot of storylines for both teams going into this game. But on the Notre Dame side, the biggest one is definitely going to be the starting quarterback, CJ Carr. And for months, I think most people assumed that it would be CJ Carr. I always felt like there was going to be a legitimate competition. Kenny Minchey is no slouch. I mean, he was a top 200 prospect coming out of high school, is a year older than CJ Carr, has been in the program for 1 year longer. But we've been hearing about CJ Carr since he committed back in the summer of 2023 as that like elite quarterback, elite thrower, all this stuff. Like he had all these traits. And then, you have to wait your turn, obviously, behind Riley Leonard your freshman season. And CJ Carr actually missed pretty much all of the fall last year. He suffered an injury in practice, and I was like, I don't know if that's going to stunt his growth. Is he going to be able to even compete for the job? Well, then it became pretty clear right away in spring practice that not only was he going to be able to compete, he had a real good chance at winning it. But yeah, man, Kenny Minchey put up one hell of a fight. There was a point late where I thought it might go the other way. Notre Dame ends up announcing CJ Carr as the starting quarterback a little bit later than most people probably expected, and now he gets to take his first real college football snaps. He got in like 4 snaps last year when Notre Dame was up by 1,000 on Purdue. But he'll have his first real snaps in a very hostile environment going into the top 10 teams. So it is going to be a very tall task, but maybe he's up for the challenge.
Anything else you're looking at? Big offseason storylines heading into this one?
I feel like it's been kind of understated that Notre Dame has a new defensive coordinator. I mean, they have a ton of great players on defense. The personnel is not the issue, but I'm very curious to see what does Chris Ash do in his first game as Notre Dame's defensive coordinator. Al Golden won the Broyles Award last year, and now he's off to the Cincinnati Bengals. He was incredible, especially these last 2 seasons. Came in, first season under him was like pretty good. There were some issues, but man, did they figure that out in year 2 and in year 3. That defense is a big reason why they made it to the national championship. Marcus Freeman went a little bit, not like off the wall with the hire of Chris Ash. There's certainly some connections there, but Chris Ash hasn't been in college for a few years. His last job in college was as the Cody C at Texas under Tom Herman. So he's back in college football. He's back calling a defense. And even though he has a bunch of great players, I'm excited to see what he can do.
Man, I mean, first thing for Miami, and, for both of our teams, we start with the quarterback position. New quarterbacks on both sides. Miami did get a guy with a lot of experience, but not experience with this team and with this offense. But, for me, I start with, I would say the pleasant surprise that Carson Beck has been. He's been dialed in. He's been completely healthy, which was so important for him coming off the elbow surgery in early December of last year. And I think this is a case where I think the change of scenery has ignited a bit of a fire under him. I'm sure he hears some of the things that Georgia folks are saying about him and how that had kind of run its course there. I think he's motivated by it. And he struck me, and, I was able to, Miami's been pretty locked down with their practices as of late. I got to go out to some of the early fall camp.
Notre Dame has been the exact same way.
I love it. But the early practices I was able to go to, the arm looks live. And pretty impressive. I mean, he's a very different quarterback from what Miami had last year with Cam Ward, but I think it's a good thing for Miami that their offensive coordinator, Shannon Dawson, he doesn't have like a one-size-fits-all type of system. Like, he's really big on adapting to his quarterback's strengths, and I'm pretty excited to see what he comes up for Carson. This is not going to be an easy matchup for Beck. We'll get into that. But I think the fact that Carson Beck has really been a pleasant surprise and has exceeded not only my expectations, but I think expectations within the building is something that I start with. I think that his football IQ and his leadership is really showing out there. Another thing for Miami that I'm anxious to see, not only week one, but all season long, is how the wide receiver core, how they mesh with Beck and how they mesh with each other, because Miami lost their top 5 pass catchers from last season, their 4 top receivers, and their top tight end, Elijah Arroyo, who's now in the NFL. And, there's a lot of athleticism in the receiver room. There's a mix of experience to inexperience, but their most experienced guy is a transfer, CJ Daniels, who's a 6-year senior who came in from LSU. A couple of the top performers in camp for Miami have been true freshmen at the receiver position. Malachi Toney, who I think might end up starting in the slot, and Joshua Moore. So this is one of those things, though, when you're going up against a big boy defense like Notre Dame the first week, how much playing time are the true freshmen going to get, or is Mario Cristobal going to lean more on some of his experienced guys, JoJo Trader and new tight end Elijah? Well, not new. I mean, he's first year as a starter. Elijah Lofton is someone who I think can have a big impact on this team. And then the last big storyline for me from a Miami point of view, you mentioned Notre Dame switching defensive coordinators. Not only did Miami do that, but there's a lot of new personnel on that side of the football. And it's not difficult to figure out why, because the defense is what cost Miami an appearance in the ACC championship game and possibly a college football playoff. They played 0 complimentary football for Cam Ward whatsoever. So, I mean, Miami's new defensive back, especially Tyler, where they had their one really good DB from last year is back, and that's O.J. Frederick, who's heading into his second year. And you add Xavier Lucas from Wisconsin to that bunch, Keontae Scott, the former Auburn player, who I think is going to start at nickel for Miami, Jacoby Thomas, the former Tennessee Volunteers safety, I think is going to be one of Miami's starting safeties. So trying to completely revamp a defensive secondary that was a big-time problem unit last year. And all the reports have been really positive coming out of practices and fall camp, but you've got to show it on the field. And on Sunday is when we're really going to try to put that all together. I do have a follow-up question for you, though, Tyler, when you talk about the quarterbacks. Is there any thought in your mind that Kenny Minchey might still get on the field despite losing the battle, that there could maybe be some packages for him?
I don't think they'll bring him in unless they feel like they have to. Okay. So I don't think that there's going to be a package for him specifically when they get in the red zone or anything like that. I just think that could create an unnecessary distraction in CJ's first start. But if CJ doesn't perform very well in the first half and they go into halftime, maybe they're down and the coaching staff feels like they need a spark, I would not be shocked if they ended up switching to Kenny Minchey. I think that CJ Carr's leash is a little bit shorter than, say, Riley Leonard's last season or Sam Hartman's the year before that. But I don't think that's in the cards. I think that they're trying to instill as much confidence in CJ Carr as humanly possible, because those guys in the Notre Dame sideline are really going to be the only ones on his side during that game come Sunday night.
Well, when we come back, I want to dive headfirst into the matchups that are going to decide this football game. You want to keep it locked right here. It's an epic crossover. Tyler Wojciak from Locked On Irish. I'm Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. We're only getting started on this Locked On crossover. Hey, Locked On Canes fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, You can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card or Amazon for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25-cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. My friends, we are also proudly brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The Part Finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Their Trademaster perks, like priority shipping and dedicated support, make the whole process smoother. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Thank you so much for making this Locked On crossover episode your first listen. Alex Donno from Locked On Canes, Tyler Wojciak from Locked On Irish. Guys, we have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards, by the way. Again, that's lockedonpodcasts.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. So, Tyler, first, and looking at this on my side more from the Miami point of view, and actually this probably applies to your list as well. Key matchup for me is going to be Miami's front seven against that Notre Dame offensive line and rushing attack with Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, who are rightfully so getting a ton of attention heading into this game. Mario Cristobal is probably tired of being asked about it by now. But, you know, for Miami, I just feel that there's no shutting down Love and Price. I think, you know, trying to limit them and maybe force CJ Carr to beat you, I think is going to be a big point of emphasis for Miami's new defensive coordinator, Corey Heatherman. Is, you know, I think you'll probably see some stacking the box and just basically trying to find out early on what CJ Carr and his very talented wide receivers are made of. Like, I think Miami will go into this saying, if somebody's going to beat us, it's not going to be Love and Price. Like, we need CJ Carr to be the guy to go out there and beat us.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. When you look at this matchup, if after the game you say, man, Notre Dame ran the ball really well against Miami, probably going to feel pretty good about Notre Dame winning that game. Or if it's the other way around and after the game you say, Miami really was able to run the ball, they're probably going to win. I know that it seems old school and cliche, but it does seem like a matchup where whatever team is able to control the line of scrimmage and be able to run the ball and also stop the run, that's probably going to be the deciding factor. Although if someone came out of this game and they said, wow, CJ Carr really impressed in his first start, like that might be the trump card for Notre Dame, or if it was Carson Beck. So it's going to be a lot of focus on the running game, but if one quarterback is able to really just get it going, and Carson Beck, you know, when he has time, he can be elite. Now, if he's pressured, that's a different story, but it does seem like so much of it is going to come down to the offensive lines on both teams and how much time they give their quarterbacks and how much push they get on the line of scrimmage when they try to run the ball.
I mean, I think that these teams are built similarly in terms of like the philosophies of their coaches, like really wanting to win at the line of scrimmage. And so, and I don't mind it, Tyler. Like, I'm a fan. Like, listen, don't get me wrong. I enjoy like a Big 12 shootout every now and again, but I'm a fan of smash mouth football. And I like to see games like the one that I'm expecting to see. You know, another important matchup, which I think comes with the territory, is not getting talked about enough. Special teams. Now, this is something maybe in a vacuum I wouldn't be overly concerned with on the Miami side, but I respect how special the Notre Dame special teams are. I mean, Mario Cristobal talked about it this week in his pregame press conference about the Irish leading the nation in blocked kicks last year. Excellent kickoff return team. Like I'm going to be, if Miami's kickers don't put it in the back of the end zone on every kickoff, I'm going to be sweating every opportunity because Miami's kickoff coverage was not good last year. They allowed 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns. So you have to hope that they've cleaned that up. And so, and then from a Miami side of it, they had basically a kicking dynasty for the last 5 years with the Borregales brothers, Jose Borregales, who won a Groza, and his younger brother, Andy Borregales, who was a Groza finalist, like 4 straight years. They're finally moved on, unfortunately. So Miami's had a kicking competition between Texas transfer Bert Auburn and FAU transfer Carter Davis. I think probably Davis will handle the kickoffs, and Auburn will probably handle the field goals and the extra points. But Miami's special teams have been a work in progress. Notre Dame has already been at the peak in that regard. I do think Miami's going to have more pop in their kick return game, adding Keelan Marion from BYU, who returned 2 kickoffs for touchdowns last year. So I just hope Miami can go toe-to-toe because, you can speak to it, Tyler. Notre Dame has made difference-making plays on special teams. I don't want that to be the reason Miami falls short in this one.
No, you and I are on the same page on this one, and I think we share similar concerns when it comes to the kicking game because Notre Dame also went out and got a kicker in the transfer portal. They went out and they got Noah Burnett from North Carolina. He has been the starting kicker for the Tar Heels for the past 3 seasons, and it's weird because he had one season where he's like kind of mediocre, and then one season where he was all ACC, went 19 of 20 kicking field goals, and then last year he went back to his mediocre self, and then it seems like Notre Dame thought he'd be a little bit more consistent, and it hasn't really gone that way in practice. They have a freshman that they really like named Eric Schmidt. There's a chance that he could come in at some point in the season. I don't know if they're going to be willing to throw him out there in Hard Rock Stadium in his first ever collegiate game, but I think that's going to be a big factor in this game. Which kicking game can come through when they need it most? Because last year, Notre Dame needed Mitch Jeter, their former kicker, to come through against Texas A&M. He did just that. Then he got hurt in the middle of the year, and Notre Dame went a long stretch without having any reliable kicking game, but it didn't really matter because they were blowing out everyone they played. Then Mitch Jeter got back and healthy just in time for the playoffs. He came up big in that game against Indiana and Georgia, and then he kicked the game winner against Penn State. So I've been expressing these concerns. I'm sure that my viewers and listeners are probably sick of me hearing about it, but at least I feel comfortable knowing that in other aspects of special teams, Notre Dame is going to try to create an advantage. As a matter of fact, Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price are expected to be back there as the kick returners in this game against Miami. That had been a rumor. It started to pick up a little bit more steam, and then there it was on the depth chart that came out on Tuesday. Jeremiah Love back there. I don't expect to see him returning kicks against Purdue, but on the road against Miami with the quarterback making his first career start, I love it. We'll see if he even has any chance to return it, but I like that he'll be back there just to strike some fear in the kicking team.
By the way, how spoiled are you that Marcus Freeman puts out a midweek depth chart? Like things are. I don't think we're going to have a Miami depth chart until like 8 minutes before kickoff. All I can do between now and Sunday is guess.
Yeah.
So at least we have that.
Did you see New Mexico? I think they put out like a fake depth chart because Michigan didn't put one out at all. So they created one that's basically all just Tom Hanks movie characters.
Oh, my God.
I love the pettiness. College football is officially back because everyone's petty again.
Yeah. I love that. Is there anything else you look at? Special teams obviously is huge on both sides. Anything else you look at from a Notre Dame point of view, a matchup you think could decide the game?
Not so much a matchup, but a specific player that I'm really going to have my eye on in this game. It's wide receiver Will Pauling. He's a transfer from Wisconsin. 2 years ago, he had a great season, over 800 receiving yards, over 70 receptions, and then his production took a dip last year, but that's also mainly because Wisconsin played a whole season without a quarterback, so it's not shocking that his production took a dip. He was a captain at Wisconsin, ended up coming over to Notre Dame, and he got elected captain again, and he's a transfer wide receiver. Now, Riley Leonard was elected captain as a quarterback. That makes a little bit more sense. But Will Pauling, who's not even guaranteed to start, as a matter of fact, he's probably going to rotate with Jane Greathouse in the slot, is elected captain. Everything that we have heard about Will Pauling is he is just all football all the time. And I feel like in a game like this, when you have a young quarterback, you want to give him some easy access throws. Well, Will Pauling is a true slot receiver in every sense of the word. A little bit undersized, but really shifty, really quick, great route runner. And I don't even think his average reception was over 10 yards when he was at Wisconsin, but it's a player like that that can create some easy throws. So I would not be surprised if CJ Carr tried to force it to him early, running short routes, and then maybe he can get some yards after the catch. But we've been hearing a lot about him when he committed to Notre Dame out of the transfer portal. It was not a big name. No one really knew all that much about him. And now he's a captain, and he might be a focal point of Notre Dame's offense going into what is probably the biggest game of the season.
Well, that's fantastic. And that's a perfect segue because I wanted us to talk about X Factor players, and Pauling sounds like one of those to me. Anyone else you look at it, obviously everyone can throw out the obvious names, but anyone you look at on that Notre Dame depth chart who could be X Factor players in this one?
Well, it's funny. Notre Dame put out the depth chart. We were just discussing how they can be a little bit coy. They had to announce the starting quarterback. They had to own that story because otherwise it would leak and things would get weird. But they have not announced who is starting at right guard. And it's either Gerby Lambert or Sullivan Absher. Now, Gerby Lambert is a former five-star. He's a redshirt freshman who's actually a true tackle that they moved inside during camp to try to start at right guard, while Charles Jagasaw, who is the projected right guard, preseason All-American type of player, he got hurt in an ATV accident over the summer, so he's out through October. But Gerby Lambert, ton of hype around him coming into the season, and there's a chance that he's going to be going up against Justin Scott, another five-star who Notre Dame wanted quite a bit. So I don't know how frequently Scott is going to be lined up directly across Gerby Lambert, but when you look at what Miami has on the edges, they're awesome. Like Ruben Bain, probably a first-round draft pick, but at least with a guy on the edge, you can double-team him. Can't always do that if you have to double team a guy like Justin Scott. So if Gerby Lambert is able to win that matchup against a player like Scott, I feel like Notre Dame has a better chance of running the ball. It's rare that you would bring up like a one-on-one on the line of scrimmage, but
I love it.
When you consider the recruiting history there, how badly Notre Dame wanted Justin Scott, how they ended up getting Gerby Lambert, if those two guys square off, that'll be a fun matchup to watch.
And the name Justin Scott is a great nod on the Miami side because this is his moment. He was a true freshman last year, former five-star recruit. And, he, like, by all the metrics, like PFF, like, he played well last year, but he played very sparingly. Like, he was not, like, a major part of Miami's defensive tackle rotation last year. This year, he is a top 3 defensive tackle. I think there's a pretty good chance he's one of the 2 starters on Sunday. And, Scott, he doesn't have the experience, but he's someone who has wowed at times in practice. And so, and I look at the importance of the interior of Miami's defensive line in a matchup like this. Scott has to step up in a big way. His fellow defensive tackles like Ahmad Moten and David Blay, 2 of those 3 are going to start. They need to be at their best in this game. Another one that I look at, a big X factor on the Miami side, and I know Miami fans would say, hey, this is not an X factor. We talk about this guy all the time, but I think the importance of tight end Elijah Lofton having a big game, specifically in this contest, I think it's amplified, knowing how good and how physical Notre Dame's corners are. I have a little PTSD watching Penn State versus Notre Dame last December. Not that I don't have any rooting interest in Penn State. I just wanted to watch the game, but seeing 0 receptions allowed to a wide receiver from the Nittany Lions had to be concerned. And so I think Elijah Lofton at tight end, who, Miami's offensive coordinator, Shannon Dawson, has said about him, the football just tends to find him. You can line him up in multiple different spots. He can play H-back. You can line him up wide. You can even line him up at running back if you want to. He had a rushing touchdown, some good carries last year. So I think finding a way to get Elijah Lofton involved is going to be important for this game. And, someone that I think could be the difference between a W and L for Miami is how transfer linebacker Mo Toure out of Rutgers plays in this one. Because for recent years, Miami has really lacked sideline to sideline speed, great run stoppers consistently at linebacker. And Toure seems to check off all of those boxes. And he used to play at the Big Ten in Rutgers, so he's gone up against big physical running backs before. So I think him having a good game and helping, limit the run as much as possible, I think is going to be important. But when we come back, it's prediction time. I'm going to put Tyler on the spot. He'll put me on the spot. Notre Dame favored by 2.5 points in South Florida. How's this game going to go down? You want to keep it locked right here. Got Locked On Irish, Locked On Canes, and epic crossover right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. But that's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. We all want to go to Notre Dame at Miami on Sunday. If you're thinking, oh, I don't know if I can get tickets or the prices are too high, you can score tickets on Game Time today starting at $194. You're not going to find deals and features like this anywhere else. Folks, the app makes it super simple. I can see the exact seat view, panoramic view in the app before I even buy. Folks, take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege. All one word, LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Download Game Time today. Thank you so much for making Locked On Irish and Locked On Canes your first listen today. Our shows are available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. I kind of wonder, Tyler, how weather may come into play in this one. I mean, obviously, both of these teams have big offensive lines, good running backs, great running backs for Notre Dame. I think good to great on the Miami side. If it does rain on Sunday night, that might suit both of these rosters just fine. I don't know how much the weather is going to be a factor, but how do you see this one playing out, and what's your final score?
I think it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight that once it's over, I mean, bless the players, because I'm sure it's going to be a very physical game. They're going to have to spend some extra time in the cold tub. It's also going to be nice to spend some extra time in the cold tub, considering it's probably going to be real hot, humid, and sticky on the field come Sunday night. But I'm expecting a defensive slugfest. I think it's going to be a really tight game going into the fourth quarter. It's going to come down to the wire. But my final score prediction that I gave out earlier this week is 24-14 Notre Dame, which sounds like they won comfortably, but I don't think that's really going to be the case. I think Notre Dame is going to have a 3-point lead late. They're going to be clinging to that, hoping that they can get a little bit of points late in the game to kind of put that game away. And I think ultimately Jeremiah Love is going to come through with a big breakaway touchdown that puts the game on ice. And it is going to be one of those games where afterwards you look at both these teams and you're thinking, okay, like these two are going to be in the 12-team college football playoff at the end of the year, because I really do think it could go either way in this matchup. Where I feel like Notre Dame has the biggest advantage is the fact that even though they obviously have to replace some key starters, especially at the quarterback position, they know how to play in big games. They just played in a big game in Hard Rock Stadium at the beginning of January. Now, granted, The environment is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a lot more Miami fans compared to Penn State fans when it was about 50-50, but they had to win that game in Hard Rock. They had to beat Georgia in New Orleans, which was basically a Georgia home game, considering how many Georgia fans were there compared to Notre Dame. So I think the big game experience, the camaraderie with this team right now, I think that's going to be enough to carry them at the end of the day. But, man, it's going to be a close game.
Now, before I tell you where we disagree, we do agree that this game is going to go under the FanDuel over-under number 49.5, right? So we can agree on that. I'm going to have Miami edging this one out by a 23-20 final. I am very relieved on the Miami side that even though Carson Beck hasn't done it at Miami, this will be the 8th time he's gone up against a top 10 opponent. He's 7-2 in those situations so far, and he's got 27 starts under his belt. I think that's going to add a little extra composure to the Miami side. Obviously, like you, I think it's going to be a close game and a knock 'em out, drag 'em out type of game. I think while both teams can have success and will have success running the football, I think Miami's running back trio is getting slept on just a little bit compared to, again, the rightful attention that Notre Dame's running game is getting. Jordan Lyle, I think, is going to be a big-time performer in this one, who's probably Miami's second string running back, but I don't think the stringers really matter in this one because Lyle is the guy with the second gear and the breakaway speed, where, Mark Fletcher and Marty Brown are 220 and 225 respectively. I think they're more of the big bruisers. So I think maybe Lyle breaking a big carry or two could be the difference in this one. Now, also, you mentioned Jeremiah Love breaking off big runs. That is something that concerns me because I've seen him pop plenty of those 50-plus yarders. I'm hoping Jordan Lyle is going to be the guy who does that and not Jeremiah Love. I do think this is a game where I can actually flex a little bit about a Miami crowd because Miami crowds only show up big for big games, and this checks that box off. So I do think the crowd is gonna make a difference in this one. If the game were in South Bend, I might go the other way. I think Miami's going to be aided by that. So I've got 23-20 Miami, and yours was 24-14 Notre Dame, correct?
That is correct. So I'm surprised you went 23-20 because that would suggest that these teams are going to combine for 3 field goals. After we had just said that kicking is going to be an issue in this game. It's funny, my lasting memory of Burt Auburn.
How many will they miss? They'll combine for 3. Maybe they'll combine for 3 misses too.
You could make the case that whoever misses the least amount of field goals wins this game. Like I just remember Burt Auburn on the field with Steve Sarkisian. After he had already missed one in that game against Arizona State in the college football playoff, he had a chance to win the game, and he missed it. And I remember Nick Saban talking about that moment, saying, never talk to your kicker. And I think Steve was, 1, trying to pump him up, 2, just pleading for him to make it, and he missed it. So he'll have a chance to redeem himself on Sunday, but I'm with you. I think it's going to be one on the margins, and if it's a kicking game, it wouldn't shock me at all.
Yeah, well, we appreciate everyone for making both of our channels your first listen, whether you're listening to this and watching this on Locked On Irish or on Locked On Canes. Thank you so much. And make sure you check out the portal. Our good friend Brian Smith does an awesome job talking all things NIL, transfer portal, recruiting. The portal is one of the newest shows here on the Locked On podcast channel. And quite frankly, Brian just knocks it out of the park. So make sure you make that your next listen. For Tyler Wojciak, I'm Alex Donno. We'll talk to you next time on another episode right here on the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.